Hello folks, welcome to the Age of Asparagus and episode 3.9 of our series. By the end of this video, each level will have its own set of waves, as few or as many as you like, and you'll be able to customize the difficulty of each of those waves by setting the enemy's speed, the damage, and health. Alright, so before we can do drops and use all the cool weapons we just made in the last episode, we're going to implement some variations in wave difficulty, and then so in the next episode, I swear in the next episode, when we do pickups, the enemies can drop those weapons we made. And since in this video we're going to be setting up variations in the waves, we'll also be able to set up so we can choose what drops are available in the different waves as the waves get more difficult. So to add some variation to our waves, let's go to our wave script. And we're just going to add some more exports. So currently you can set the number of enemies and how long it takes for them to spawn. But let's also add a variation to their movement speed. So we'll add move speed here. And I think I'm just going to set it to a default of 2.0. So I have to add the 0.0 if you want it to be a float in the inspector. For example, number of enemies, I cannot make 1.5. It'll just convert to 2 because we've exported it as an integer. We haven't explicitly labeled it as an integer, but we've assigned it an initial integer value, so it's going to interpret that. But move speed we might want to have as a decimal, so if we put a decimal there, then in our export it will actually allow us to do that. Okay, so let's add a move speed. Let's add variable damage. So the enemies in a wave can do different amounts of damage. It'll set the default at 1. As well, the enemies could have a different value for their health. And we'll set that to 10, which I think was the default for enemies. And I'm not sure we'll get to this in this video, but another thing that would be nice to have would be to change the enemy's body color. And we can set that to our current default color, which is green. And that way, as the enemies get difficult or different waves, different levels, you can change their color. That's less function and that's more bling, so that might wait till phase 5. In fact, let's just Control K that for now, come back to that. So if we're going to use these characteristics in different waves, when the enemies are spawned, they'll have to be spawned with that damage, that health, that movement, right? So we're going to have to go into the spawner script here. And let's go, where do we spawn the enemy? I think there's a spawn enemy. Here it is. So we're going to instantiate the enemy. And then we're going to create a new function called setCharacteristics. And this is basically going to set all these variables on the enemy once they're spawned. SetCharacteristics. Did I spell that right? And we're going to pass it all of these values. So we're going to have to get this data from the wave, which will be stored in the current wave variable. So I should be able to go current wave dot health, yep, and then current wave dot damage, current wave dot, what else do we do, move speed, and those are the values that the enemy needs. So let's go create this method on the enemy. So we'll go down into our enemy scene in the enemy script, and we can do this up here. Maybe it's not a real setter, but we'll put it under our set navmap setter. So a new function to set the characteristics, and we're going to give it a health, damage, move speed. So to set our health, the enemy is currently using a stats node, so let's set the max health. Is that on there? There we go. Max health will equal the health we're going to give it. And we do have a damage. We do not have a damage. We have a speed. Okay, well, let's add a new variable, damage, and we'll set it equal to 1 by default. So let's do those last two things. So we'll do self.damage equals the damage that we provided to the function, and we'll go self.speed equals what we've called here move speed in the method. Now we didn't have a damage, which means our enemy doesn't actually do that amount of damage. So we're going to want to use this when the enemy actually applies damage. I think we just hard-coded a value of 1 when we first did this, right? So here's our move and attack method for the enemy. The state is attacking, player stats, take hit. There we go. Yeah, hard-coded 1 damage. So instead we'll just put the actual damage variable for the enemy there. Okay, just another thing here in the max, we're setting the max health. So if we go to the stats here, I know the current hit points is an on-ready var, but it's possible that the stats node will be ready before the enemy node is completely ready and loaded. And it's only after that that we can actually call set characteristics. And then if we actually set the max health, it won't actually set the current health. So what we should probably do is for the max hit points here, let's create a setter for that. And then above our ready method, we can create that function, set max hit points. I'm using hit points and health here. New max hit points. Okay, and then obviously we'll set the max hit points to the new max hit points. I apologize for my 2 different ways of doing this. Sometimes I go max hit points equals new hit points, and sometimes I use the self. But let's go back to the self. Max hit points, good. And then here we're also going to make sure the current hit points has been set to the new maximum, just in case. Okay, so why don't we see if we can get that to work? Make sure everything's saved here. We'll go back to our game. In our wave, let's set something. We'll only do a single enemy. We'll give it a single health, so it should be obvious that these enemies only do 1 health. And then in wave 2, let's do them super fast, like 10 speed, and then like 100 health, like we can't even kill them. Just to see if this is working. It's not working. Oh, wow, it's not happy with my self.max. All right, well, let's just go new then. Anyway, that should be it. Okay. So this should have 1 hit point and die right away. Boom, does. And then our next wave should be super fast and impossible to kill. Yep. Oh wow, their attack speed is a multiple of their actual movement speed there, so that's a little weird. But it's working. Okay, but what if we want each of our levels to have different wave combinations? Like we want level 1 to have a certain bunch of waves and level 2 to have different waves, and for example keep having it get harder and harder every level. Currently those waves will just repeat each level that you finish, right? So what we want to do is we want to attach a bunch of waves to each level, and then we can customize the waves per level. So what we're going to do here is let's just reset this to some standard defaults that look decent, and let's save the wave branch as a scene, and I'm going to save it under spawning wave. That sounds good. And let's go to our levels and our level generator and our generated levels. Let's just go to nav map 1. So this is the first map in our scene, and I'm going to create a new child node, and this is going to be just a plain old node, this kind right there. Yep. And I'm going to call this waves, just like we had before. And I'm going to drop in under spawning the wave scene we just saved right there. Okay, and then I can duplicate that, Control D, and we'll have a couple waves. I give wave 1 there, 3 enemies between 3 seconds. I'm just going to reduce that to 1 for testing purposes. And then we can have wave 2, and just to make sure we know they're going to be way faster. Now, eventually we're going to want to place these using our level generator, because we don't want to have to create that waves node and then drop a wave in and every time after we've already saved a new level from our level generator. So we'll be adding that right at the end there to make this a little bit more streamlined. And because we're not going to be using the waves in our game, we're going to need a way to get the wave from our dynamically loaded nav map here. So let's just, in our navigation script, we'll add a new function here. It's not a real getter, but we'll call it getWaves. And all it will do is it will return all the children. So we'll go return and we'll have this waves node, which is kind of like a wave container, and we'll get all its children. There we go. So that's going to be a list of waves, just like we currently do in our game. Now for the test. Okay, now we need the game to load it dynamically, and we're going to delete this. Oh boy, it's always scary. So we're deleting the waves, and now we need to load it. So we're actually going to do this in our spawner class, because the game already loads our maps up here, right? As soon as it's ready, it adds a nav map, and it's got ways of switching maps we dealt with earlier. But one thing that happens when we add a nav map down here is it sends the nav map to the spawner. So we actually have access to this in the spawner already, which is perfect. And when we set the nav map right here, instead of getting the waves directly as children of the spawner, in fact, we don't need that at all, so I'm just going to delete that. We're going to get them from the nav map instead. So we can go waves equals nav map, get waves. Why isn't auto completing? I think because we don't give a type hint here to our nav map. So let's give it our custom navigation map class there. And now if I go nav map, I should be able to get waves, right? Yeah. And waves should be a list of all the wave nodes, which is exactly what it's going to be because it just gets the children. And now it should load the waves dynamically from the map. It's only going to work for our first map because we didn't actually add it to the other maps. But let's just make sure it does. So here's one enemy. And then the other enemy should be fast. Yep. Okay, that's it. Let's see if I can actually survive. No, I'm not going to survive. And then we'll crash here, right? Yeah, okay. Because our level 2 does not have any waves attached to it. So instead of doing this manually for all our maps, let's go to, we're still going to manually set the values of the waves and how many we want, but let's just get this structure built into our map. So when we generate our maps, it's easily just to, you can Control D, create as many waves as you want for that level, and then tweak the variations you want. So let's go back to our level generator, and we'll go to our level generator scene. Maybe I'll just make sure it still works because I haven't been here in a while. Can I generate a scene? It does not seem to be happy. Clear. Can we save everything? Definitely not generating levels. Output. Don't quite know what's going on here. I think I'm going to give Godot a little reboot. Okay, we're back. Level generator. Let's open our level generator scene. Please, please. Oh, phew. Okay, don't know what that problem was, but it seems to be fixed with the reboot. And if I save it, does that naming convention work? Hey, it does. Cool. So we have version 2-5. Okay, so let's go into our level generator script. And so basically after we generate a level, we just want to add that waves container, the waves node, and then maybe just one actual wave, which makes it easier for us to duplicate and we don't have to end up adding it in manually. So for the wave scene, we'll export that. And then we can drop it, save it. Oh, Control S save. Oh, I put that in a bad spot. Let's put that after the nav mesh here. Okay, and then let's go get that wave from our spawning folder. There's the wave scene. We'll drop it over there. Okay, so now we have a wave we can default. And since we're going to create a wave container, that wave node, we're actually going to need to reference it a bunch of times, so I'm just going to add it similar to these ones here. I'll call it the wave container. And it's just going to be a base node. Forgot the E there. Okay, so that sets us up. Now where we generate the map, we do all the generating important stuff, and we're just going to add the waves as a new method, which doesn't exist, so I'll just add it right here, right below. Now they're all out of order. Oh my gosh, so disorganized. Okay, so we're going to add the waves. This is going to be pretty simple. We'll take that wave container variable we created, and it's just going to be a new base node, just like that. and then we'll give it a name to match like we've been using, which is waves. And then under the waves node, we'll put all the actual individual wave nodes. That was a lot of confusing wave and node words. Okay, so now we're going to have to create the wave itself, and we're going to use the wave scene that we created. We'll instantiate it. Good. And let's add it as a child to the wave container. And then let's add it to the level. Just remember here that level in the level generator, level was the variable that's holding our actual navigation map. So level dot add child, and then by adding the wave container we should also be adding everything underneath it, and let's just check that out by generating a new map. We don't see it because remember, in order to see it in the tree here, oopsie, we have to set its owner. So we can just do that here. We'll set the owner of the wave container to the level generator, and we'll do the same thing with the wave. And now having done that, it should show up when we generate a level. Good, there it is. So that's just our structure, right? And then if we wanted to, when we load our level, or when we want to edit the level, we can make as many waves as we want. We can modify them as much as we want. So now we just need to make sure they export with the level when we save it, which currently, so what is this? V2-11. So let's save this level. And just a reminder here, you have to click the nav mesh and manually bake that nav mesh if you're making a real level. So V2-11. So we're going to save it. It's already complaining about some stuff. Did we even get the level? Generated levels. We do have a V2-11. It does not have any waves in it, however. Okay, so we're going to have to go to the save method, which I think was our little hacky set the Boolean variable way up top, right? Yeah, set save level here. So just like we do for all the obstacles and the nav mesh, we have to set the new owner to be the level itself. So this is why I made the wave container a variable, so we could access it here as well. And we'll set the owner. We'll set the owner to be the level. And then just like we do here, even though there's only one, we'll get all the children of the wave container, oops, and we'll set the owner to be the level. Okay, clear that. Level generator, we'll generate a new level. So now we're on V2-13. Let's save it. I forgot to do the nav mesh. All right, there's our waves. So now, to make sure we have a working game by the end of this video, I should probably go to our game and get rid of these two nav maps. And in the generated levels, I'm actually going to delete all of them except for our first one. Ooh, it's still referenced? Okay, that's because I need to save. Okay. There we go. Now they're not referenced. Let's shift select all these. Just don't delete your map number 1. Nav map 1. And we can, let's get rid of that one. Don't need that. Generate some new levels. I'll just generate one for now. Sure. Nav mesh. Bake the nav mesh. Save it. Oh, V2-14. Let's set that back to number 2 because this is actually going to be our level 2. And we don't need the V2. Nav map 2. They're all going to be this now. Save the level. Now we have a 1 and a 2 in our game. Let's just make sure this is all working. So nav map 2 I will add as a additional level. And if I click nav map 1, we have a basic wave. We have again a basic wave. Let's make this just 5 maybe. And then on nav map 2, let's make it, okay, so there's only going to be one wave. Let's make it hilarious. Tons of enemies, like 50 enemies, and they spawn all within half a second. Just to make it obvious that it's actually using different waves from the first level, right? So we'll save that, save that. Save everything here, and let's run it. Cleanup episode, we gotta randomize that seed for... Okay, there we go. Oh, here we go. Yep, look at that. So awesome. Goodbye. I swear next video we will be doing, finally, drops, pickups stuff.